So I think pretty much every day when I am scrolling through social media, liberals definitely make me feel like I am living in a parody, that I'm living in some kind of real life comedy skit, except it's not very funny because just when we think that they can't get more unhinged, they say, hold my Kool-Aid. I can do better than I did yesterday. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we lead up to what it is that they have lost their minds out about today, we have to understand what it is that they are responding to. And it is the announcement that the Trump administration made yesterday regarding Tylenol usage for pregnant women. Not pregnant people, pregnant women, because women are the only people that can get pregnant. And the studies that are coming out that have been going on for a long time informing us that there is a potential increased risk for autism for your child if you take Tylenol while you are pregnant. Now, there's a lot of things that I think are linked to this. I personally always appreciate more information, whether or not that risk is minimal or it is significant. I want to know what all of the risks are for a party that claimed to want to be transparent, and I'm talking about the Democrats here who claim to be informed and educated. They seem to be directly opposed to getting more information. Weird how that all works out. But we're going to go through the announcement that was made, the studies that they pointed to, what my personal thoughts are on this, even though you don't have to really care what I think about it, because obviously I'm not a medical professional. I'm just giving my perspective. And then the unhinged response by liberal women in general, who seem to be the most uninformed, uneducated, miserable group of people in modern history, the most propagandized for sure. But before we get too much further, I am Outspoken Samantha. I appreciate you so much for being here. Please hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you so much for doing both of those things. So first, let's look at the announcement that Trump made. And of course, he had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. by his side, who has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to things like vaccines and medications in general. And then he had Dr. Mehmet Oz, and he had other people from the NIH, people that actually have PhDs that were with him. So it's not like this information was coming directly from Trump, but of course, anything that Trump says, liberals assume that he just pulled it out of his butt, pulled it out of nowhere, and doesn't think about the people that are surrounding him that might have actually given input to these very important announcements. But this is what he had to say about this revelation that we are learning again after a couple of decades of studying whether or not there is a link between taking Tylenol when you're pregnant and an increased risk of autism in your child.
Tylenol during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that. It's a small number of cases, I think. But if you can't tough it out, if you can't do it, that's what you're going to have to do. You'll take a Tylenol, but it'll be very sparingly. It can be something that's very dangerous to the woman's health. In other words, a fever that's very, very dangerous, and ideally a doctor's decision, because I think you shouldn't take it, and you shouldn't take it during the entire pregnancy. They may tell you that toward the end of the pregnancy, you shouldn't take it during the entire, and you shouldn't give the child a Tylenol every time he's born and he goes and has a shot. You shouldn't give a Tylenol to that child. All pregnant women should talk to their doctors for more information about limiting the use of this medication while pregnant. So ideally, you don't take it at all. But if you can't tough it out, if there's a problem, you're going to end up doing it.
And when it comes to this announcement specifically, I don't think that Trump should be the one to share this information. He's got people with PhDs around him that I think should lead these kind of press conferences. That being said, I don't think it makes the information less valuable. I'm just saying, like, I understand how that might be a little bit off-putting for people and kind of make them roll their eyes a little bit. But this is not information, again, that he is pulling out of nowhere. This is stuff that has been questioned for a long time. I've heard a lot of women say that when their mom was pregnant with them years and years ago, their doctor told them not to take Tylenol because of these very concerns. And then we had other women say that their doctor told them that it was totally fine. My doctor was one of those people, I think, if I remember correctly, it's been a while, that said it was fine. I was always hesitant to take pretty much anything when I was pregnant because I did have to keep my baby in mind that I didn't want things going into their system that could be damaging. They were developing. So it was always a concern, but I'm not going to judge people for what they do to an extent. If you're smoking and drinking while you're pregnant, which mind you, women used to be told was totally fine as well. But if you're doing that while you're pregnant, I probably have a little bit of judgment for you. But all of that being said, this isn't information that is coming out of nowhere. This is stuff that has been around for a while, things that people have been questioning, and there are big names attaching themselves to these studies. So this is a post by Mario Knopfel, and he does some great research, a lot of great deep dives, and he summarizes where these studies came from and the big names that were attached to this information. So this isn't just coming from Trump. We've got some of the leading medical advisors and researchers in the country, if not the world, saying that we've got the evidence and now it's becoming too obvious to ignore. We at least need to make the public aware of this. It says many critics were quick to roll their eyes when Trump said Tylenol during pregnancy might raise autism risks, suggesting Trump was staying true to form with headline-grabbing statements of dubious value. But Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Columbia, and Mount Sinai all say the same thing, and they've got the peer-reviewed studies to prove it. Harvard School of Public Health found that acetaminophen exposure increases risk for both autism and ADHD. Johns Hopkins discovered babies with the most acetaminophen in their cord blood were nearly 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with autism. Even Mount Sinai called the connection to neurodevelopmental disorders strong enough to warrant warnings for expectant mothers. Now, the FDA finally agrees, saying the data is too strong to ignore and will move forward with label changes and doctor alerts. Tylenol probably did contribute to autism, however hard it may be to believe that such a thing could fly under the radar and cause a generational epidemic of autism that went unchallenged for decades. And this isn't the first time that Tylenol has even been on the radar for this connection between pregnant women taking it and questioning whether or not their autistic child, like that was caused by that. In this post, it says, check this out. In 2023, there was a class action lawsuit against the maker of Tylenol, alleging use during pregnancy led to birth disorders and autism. A federal judge blocked the evidence from being presented, effectively ending the case.
Fox Business Alert, take a look at shares of Kenvue. They are up about 1.6%. Kenvue is the consumer products unit J&J spun off back in August. Shares hitting a one-month high at this hour after it received a favorable court ruling related to a class action lawsuit. The lawsuit claimed that exposure to Tylenol during pregnancy caused birth disorders. The federal judge in the case issued an order that will not allow the plaintiffs to present evidence for a link between prenatal exposure to Tylenol and autism or ADHD. JP Morgan added Kenvue to its focus list, saying the ruling effectively collapses the plaintiff's case in this litigation.
And someone shared this information in a post below that. It says, it's not shocking that it's the same federal judge, Denise Cody, that blocked Doge from accessing databases at the Office of Personnel Management. So this all makes sense to me. As someone who's had 3 kids, again, more information is a good thing. There are a lot of things that you cannot take, most things that you cannot take while you are pregnant. You're told not even to eat cold lunch meat. So the fact that as the years go on and we are doing more and more research, that there's a longer list coming out of things that you should not take during pregnancy should not be surprising to anybody. But liberal women really seem to have a problem with this, because now, just to spite Trump, I guess, they are posting videos of themselves intentionally taking Tylenol just to prove him wrong, I guess. This video I have to play on silent because there's a copyrighted song over top of it. But here she is with her little Tylenol bottle. She says, here's me, a pregnant woman taking Tylenol because I believe in science and not someone who has no medical background. Yeah, she's really showing Trump there. Like, here's another one.
About to take Tylenol for my headache while pregnant because I don't take my medical advice from a man who doesn't have a degree in science, healthcare, or medicine, and who had a parasitic brain infection and was addicted to heroin for 14 years. Yeah, I'll trust my doctors who have their degree.
And one more. Again, we have to play with the music on mute because of the copyright. It says, me popping Tylenol while pregnant because WTF is the government going to do about it? Yeah, nobody cares what you're doing. Nobody's going to stop you. This is for informational purposes. So it's weird that you would interpret this as Trump saying this is bad for you based on all of these studies coming from people with actual PhDs to, I'm going to put it out there because I think someone's going to knock on my door and take my Tylenol bottles from me. It's just so weird how these messages get so twisted in liberal brains. Because if somebody came out and told me this while I was pregnant, I'd be like, thank you for the information. And I would take it to my doctor's office. And I understand as we're finding out more and more, doctors aren't 100% right all the time, and they cannot be trusted 100% all the time. I am kind of in the middle when it comes to medical skepticism. I am not so far off the rails where I think that everything in the medical industry is bought and paid for by big pharma and nothing can be trusted. I'm also not so far the other way to say that we should trust literally everything that doctors say. And that's why more information is important and the autonomy is important so that you can make these choices from an informed position. That's all that we're doing here. But when it comes to who they listen to as far as medical experts, these were the same people that thought that putting anything that you had lying around your home or on the floor of your car over your face was going to protect you from supposedly the most deadly virus on planet Earth, who yelled and screamed at you if you didn't have your face covered at all times, or if you didn't follow the little arrows in the grocery store, or if you didn't stay exactly 6 feet apart from the person in front of you, beside you, or behind you at all times, who listened to people like Randy Weingarten, who insisted that we needed to keep schools closed indefinitely, despite the fact that the population that they were referring to, which were kids, were the least vulnerable to COVID at the time. And we had the data and the science and the evidence to back it up. These are the people that are questioning what is coming out now. And not to mention, what is being shared is not being shared by force. Nobody's coming out and saying, this is what you have to do or not to do. Nobody's going to lock you in your home or make you lose your job or tell you that you should not receive medical care if you choose to take a Tylenol, unlike those who said that we didn't deserve medical treatment if we got COVID and chose not to get the COVID vaccine. Obviously, the only standard that these people operate by is whether or not Trump is for or against something, whether or not the message comes from President Trump. Because obviously, as we said, this information did not come from him. He delivered the message, but all of this stuff is coming from actual medical professionals. He's not just throwing it out there. But their decision-making process is entirely on who delivers the words and not where it came from. And they are even willing to put themselves and their babies at risk just to spite this man, even though it's going to have no effect on him whatsoever. What does Trump care whether or not you take Tylenol? What is it going to do to him? You and your baby are the ones that are going to have to deal with the potential consequences. Heaven forbid that your child does get autism, that you have to have a conversation later with them saying, the reason that you have this is because I took extra Tylenol to spite a man that was in office 10, 20 years ago. That's going to make them feel really good. You psychos. And of course, we do have to point to the very obvious hypocrisy, double standard, lack of awareness, whatever you want to call it, when these people are telling us that they rely on science and data and proof and whatever else, and they still can't answer what a woman is. So there's that. But the last thing I will say on this is that it's always interesting how we have to teach the people that like to tell us how educated they are and how informed they are, and that they are the experts when it comes to critical thinking, how to actually think critically. Because as we know, just because you take Tylenol and your child is totally fine does not mean that there's no link. Just because you take Tylenol and your child does end up with autism doesn't mean that the Tylenol was the cause. Just because you didn't take Tylenol and your child does have autism doesn't mean that the evidence and the studies are completely bogus. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this, but all they are saying is add this to the list of potential risks that you are exposing yourself and your child to, so that you can make an informed decision about what you do regarding your health while you're pregnant. Nobody's going to knock on your door, tell you what you have to do. Nobody's going to police your doctor's office and tell them the advice that they have to give. Kind of like what you guys were doing when all of us were going to our doctors and you were demanding that doctors force their patients to get the COVID vaccine and all of these things, and make actual regulations regarding what we could and could not do if we did not comply. But, details. Anyway, I would love to hear what you guys think about this in the comments below, whether or not you think there is a link, what your skepticism level is when it comes to information like this, and of course, what you think of liberals who are intentionally going out of their way to put more of this stuff in their body just to stick it to Trump, because that just demonstrates a complete level of delusion, programming, brainwashing that I think is unprecedented. Please be sure to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel. And as you guys know, we always end with a clip of Charlie Kirk. Keep it real, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Look, in a post-COVID world,
I'm just an idealist to believe that
hold on, Andrew.
You're not the left. You're not intolerant.
You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
We did not receive any apologies from the ruling class that lied to us repeatedly during COVID. The lockdowns, the efficacy of the vaccine, mask mandates, school closures, and we just act as if it didn't happen. And I don't think the American ruling class understands the undermining of their credibility that happened when the entire country had their lives thwarted, especially young people. We're just supposed to like reopen the country and be like, well, why don't you trust us anymore? Well, it's because, oh yeah, the Hunter Biden laptops, Russian disinformation, 50 intel operations signed this letter. And you know I'm making a good point here, because there was no contrition.
That's just one example.
And again, I could go one after the other.